up Bates' shocker. Gil and Kelly Jo Bates announced divorce after decades of marriage. The Bates household had always been known for its laughter, its warmth, and the sound of children filling every corner of the home. For years, they were celebrated as the perfect picture of unity. A father leading with faith, a mother nurturing with love, and 19 children growing under their guidance. But on that evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, something was different. The voices of the children were bright, but beneath the noise lay a silence heavy between the two people who built this family. Gil Bates sat at the head of the table, his Bible beside his plate. His presence carried authority, but his eyes carried a weight no one could ignore. Across from him, Kelly Jo's smile was practiced, her words measured, as though she were trying to hold together something that was already breaking. After prayer, the family began to eat. Plates clattered, children whispered, and for a moment, the illusion of peace held. Until Kelly Jo spoke. She reminded one of her daughters about an upcoming college application. Her words were simple, caring, and filled with hope for her child's future. But those words cut the fragile fabric of the evening. Gil's voice, deep and stern, cut across the table. He reminded everyone that the family had discussed this before. College was not their priority. It was not the path he believed was right. The room shifted instantly. Forks froze midair. Eyes dropped to plates. The laughter of just moments before disappeared into silence. Kelly Jo's answer was quiet but sharp. She said it wasn't a distraction. It was their daughter's dream, her future. She said it with the kind of determination that only comes from a mother's heart. The children, caught between loyalty and fear, sat in silence. Some dared to glance at their father's face, others at their mother's. No one spoke. Gil's words grew harder. He spoke of sacrifice, of devotion, of how much he had given for this family. His tone rose with each sentence, not in anger alone but in desperation, as though he was fighting to hold on to something slipping through his fingers. Kelly Jo didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her words were soft but carried a deeper weight. She told him that family wasn't about control. Family was about love, about allowing their children to choose their own path. Her words pierced the silence, and for a moment the entire house felt the fracture. It was no longer just an argument. It was a truth too painful to ignore. The children lowered their heads. Some fought tears, others clenched their fists under the table. They understood. Even if no one spoke it aloud, the unity that had held their family together for decades was breaking apart. And at the center of that long wooden table, between a father who refused to let go of control and a mother who refused to let go of her children's dreams, the silence spoke louder than anything else. The house had grown quiet after dinner. The laughter of the younger children had faded into soft snores behind bedroom doors. Yet in the kitchen, silence lingered like a storm waiting to break. Gil stood at the sink, his broad shoulders tense, scrubbing plates with a force that betrayed his anger. Beside him, Kelly Jo dried dishes, her movements slower, deliberate, as though every breath she took was an effort to remain calm. The air between them was heavy, filled not with the comfort of years together, but with the weight of words unspoken for too long. Kelly Jo's voice broke the silence first, gentle but edged with pain. She told him that what he had said at the table hurt. Not only her, but their daughter. She said he had silenced a dream in front of everyone. Gil did not look at her. His jaw tightened. He said he was protecting his family, reminding them of what mattered most. He spoke as if every choice outside his authority was a threat to the very foundation of their home. Kelly Jo's reply was sharp, though her voice never rose. She told him that protecting was not the same as controlling, that love could not grow in the shadow of fear. The sound of a plate slamming into the sink shattered the fragile quiet. Water splashed upward, dripping down the cabinets. Gil's chest rose and fell as he fought to hold his anger in place. His eyes, usually filled with resolve, were burning now with something darker. Fear of losing everything he had built. Kelly Jo did not step back. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the towel, but her gaze did not waver. She told him that happiness had been missing for too long, that the walls of their home no longer echoed with true joy, only with routine. Gil's voice dropped low and bitter. He asked her if this was what she wanted after all these years, to tear everything apart, to undo the life they had built brick by brick. Tears welled in her eyes, but her words were steady. She whispered that she never wanted to destroy anything. She only wanted to live in a family where silence wasn't mistaken for peace, where control wasn't mistaken for love. Her towel slipped from her hands, falling to the floor with a soft thud. She turned and walked away, her footsteps slow, heavy, but certain. Gil stood alone, hands gripping the edge of the sink. The faucet dripped steadily, each drop echoing in the emptiness of the room. For the first time, the leader of the family looked small, like a man who could command the world, but not hold on to the person standing beside him. The morning light crept into the Bates home, but it carried no warmth. The house that once echoed with laughter now carried an uneasy quiet, broken only by the shuffle of feet and the clinking of breakfast dishes. The children moved through their routines, but their eyes betrayed them. Some looked to their father, others to their mother, each child silently measuring where their loyalty should lie. The older ones felt it first. They had seen the way their mother's eyes were red when she came out of her room, the way her smile faltered when she tried to greet them. They had seen the way their father's voice grew sharper, the way he clung to order as though it was the only thing keeping the family from collapse. Whispers began in the hallways, behind closed doors, late at night when the youngest were asleep. Some of the older boys defended their father. They said he had always provided, always sacrificed, always led them with strength. They insisted he knew best, even if his ways were hard. Others, mostly the daughters, gathered near their mother, sensing her quiet suffering. They saw her patience, her gentleness, and the weight she carried in silence. They whispered that she was the one who truly understood them, the one who allowed them to dream. The division was never spoken aloud at the table, but it was there, in the glances exchanged, in the pauses before speaking, in the way siblings sat closer to one parent than the other. At night, the sound of muffled tears could be heard in different rooms. A daughter writing in her journal, confessing her fear that her parents' love was slipping away. A son pacing the hallway, fists clenched, angry that he could not fix what was breaking. For the younger children, confusion clouded their innocence. They tugged at their mother's dress, asking softly why she looked so sad. They clung to their father's arms, asking why he no longer smiled the same way. And in the middle of it all, the home that had once been united by faith and family now felt like two separate worlds sharing the same roof. The Bates children had always believed their parents were unshakable, that nothing could break the foundation of their home. But now, for the first time, they realized the truth. Even the strongest walls can crack, and sometimes the cracks run straight through the people you love the most. For years, the Bates family had been a symbol, admired, praised, even envied. They were the family others pointed to when asked what faith, discipline, and unity looked like. Smiling faces in photographs, warm greetings at church, testimonies of a home built on values. But whispers are harder to silence than prayers. It began with small things. The mother arriving to church without her husband beside her. The father leaving early without saying goodbye. People noticed the gap between them on the pew, the absence of their intertwined hands. The children, once confident in their collective identity, began to feel the sting of questions. Friends at church asked why their mother looked tired, why their father seemed distant. Some avoided answering. Others, with voices low and eyes downcast, admitted that things weren't the same at home. At first, the family tried to hold the image together. Smiles stretched thin in public, polite laughter rehearsed for gatherings. But the cracks could not be hidden forever. A tense silence at a church dinner, when Gil interrupted Kelly Jo mid-sentence. A sudden tear Kelly Jo wiped away before anyone could notice. A daughter's forced smile as she explained her dreams were on hold for now. The community that once praised them began to wonder. Was the perfect family breaking? Were the values they preached strong enough to withstand the storms within their own walls? And behind closed doors, the pressure of reputation pressed even harder. Gil felt the eyes of others judging him, whispering that he was losing control. Kelly Jo felt the weight of sympathy, the quiet looks that told her everyone could see her pain. The children carried the burden most heavily. Some defended their parents fiercely, insisting that nothing was wrong. Others withdrew, ashamed to face the world that had placed their family on a pedestal. The Bates name, once spoken with admiration, was now whispered with uncertainty. The image they had lived for decades was no longer shining. It was fragile, breaking, and for the first time, the world outside their walls could see it. And in that moment, the family realized something devastating. What had once made them proud, their public identity, was now the very mirror reflecting their private downfall. The day of the announcement came quietly, without warning, as though the house itself had already known it was coming. The children gathered in the living room, their faces pale with fear, their hearts pounding with questions they dared not ask. The younger ones clung to their older siblings, their small hands trembling. Gil sat in his chair, shoulders hunched, eyes cast downward. His Bible rested on the table beside him, but for the first time in years he did not reach for it. Kelly Jo stood across the room, her hands clasped together, the weight of her decision pressing against her chest. For a moment no one spoke. The silence was unbearable. Then Kelly Jo's voice broke through, soft but trembling. "Kelly Jo, your father and I, we love each of you more than anything. But sometimes love changes, and sometimes it's not enough to keep people together the way it used to." Her words shattered the air. The children's faces twisted with disbelief, confusion, and pain. Tears welled in their eyes, some shaking their heads, refusing to understand. Gil finally lifted his gaze. His voice was heavy, almost broken. "Gil, I never wanted this. I fought for this family with everything I had. But I can't fight the silence anymore. I can't fight her dreams, and she can't live with my ways. So we have to let go." One of the younger daughters cried out, running to Kelly Jo, burying her face in her mother's dress. A son clenched his fists, tears rolling down his cheeks as he turned away, unable to watch his father crumble. The older children exchanged broken glances, the truth hitting them hardest. They had known this was coming, but knowing didn't make it hurt less. Kelly Jo crossed the room, her hands trembling as she reached for Gil. For the first time in years, they stood inches apart, not as partners, not as enemies, but as two people bound by love that had simply worn itself thin. "Kelly Jo," voice breaking, "I'll always be grateful for the life we built, for the children we raised. But Gil, I can't keep pretending." Gil's eyes filled, his voice cracking. "Gil, and I can't stop holding on, even when I should." They stood there, two lives intertwined yet breaking apart, their children crying around them, the house that had once been full of joy now echoing only with grief. And then, with no more words left, Kelly Jo turned and walked toward the door. The children rushed to her, some following, some staying frozen where they were. Gil remained in his chair, staring at the door as it closed behind her. The sound of her footsteps faded. The room fell silent, except for the sobs of children who had just lost the one thing they thought could never be broken. Gil lowered his head into his hands. The man who had once stood as the unshakable pillar of his family now sat alone, his strength gone, his faith shaken, his home divided. And for the first time in the Bates household, love was not enough to keep the family whole. "Broken heart,